What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and we are back with another Tales of Arise video. So, we have most of the pre-information that I think we're going to get before the game comes out. There will be a little bit of tidbits here and there. You know, of course, on July 5th, we're going to get another stream, which is going to go over which is going to show us who is singing the song, which, if you haven't kept up with the online news on Twitter, it's good. They said it's going to be a 4-member male group who is singing the opening, so we'll have to see who that's going to be. I'm not sure if they'll get someone else to sing the opening in English, but I guess we'll just have to kind of see. Like, sometimes they have different openings for Japanese and English, so we'll have to see what kind of happens with that. So they're going to show us the opening, and they're going to tell us who is singing the song. So that's pretty cool. But I want to just kind of talk about my feelings on Tales of Arise up to this point. The good, I don't want to really say the bad, because until I play it myself, I can't really say whether something's bad or not. But I guess just things that, I guess my concerns. I guess the only thing we really don't know is how skits are going to look, which, of course, when they reveal skits, I will talk about that as well, which I don't think we're going to see skits until around August, because I think this is just their way of kind of trickling little bits of information about the game up until the release, instead of doing what a lot of games do, whereas tell us everything in, June, and then they don't post anything until, like, the week before the game comes out. So we have, like, 3 months of silence. This is a way to keep the hype kind of going for Tales of Arise. But let's just... There's no script for this or anything. I'm just going to talk about what comes to my mind when I think about the game, and just kind of my thoughts overall from everything that we've seen. Of course, I haven't played the game myself, so I can only say based on what I've seen. So I guess let's just... Where should we start? I guess let's start gameplay. I think the gameplay looks fine. Initially, I don't want to say overwhelmed, but I guess I'll just go with overwhelmed at first, because there's just so much happening at once. But I think once I actually have the game in my hand, it's going to be a lot easier to kind of go with, because, you look at a lot of past Tales games, further away than the more recent ones. Look at stuff like Xillia, Vesperia, Symphonia. They almost feel like two completely different series. They do not feel like... I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't feel like the Tales series, because the Tales series has been evolving. I mean, that's what you kind of have to do. And I think that's something that I struggled to come to grips with at first, is that for a game to succeed in a modern age, it does need to evolve. You can't just stick to exactly the same formula for 40 years and expect that everything's going to work. That's why you get Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy's kind of moved from turn-based to action as time has gone on. You really don't have much turn-based now. You kind of have a mix of it with Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it's mostly moved, with Final Fantasy 15 and, this Final Fantasy Origins game, as well as Final Fantasy 16. They've really kind of pushed their main titles into the action kind of front. Star Ocean, don't really have much to say there, because we haven't gotten a new game in, 6-7 years, so not really much to say there. But the Trail series, they're keeping what fans have loved. With Kuro no Kiseki, we are getting, our fans are getting, a mix of command-based battle and action battle. You'll be able to choose whether you're doing action or command-based. So, to kind of move with the times, where a lot of, just general gamers like to be in the, in the pilot seat, so to speak, of the game, instead of just, watching animations happen. It's just kind of how things go. So, what Tales of Arise is doing, by making things more flashy and more action-oriented, I mean, it's still always been action-oriented, but making things faster and, flashier, and being able to move wherever you want, instead of sticking to their traditional systems, is a way to kind of appeal to a bigger audience. Flashier things bring more eyes onto the series. So I won't know if I like it or not until I've actually played it myself, but as we've gotten more trailers, more gameplay stuff, I'm starting to be more okay with how Tales of Arise looks gameplay-wise. But I will have to see, you know, how the characters play and everything, and whether I feel like battles just get like too scale too fast, or if it's as engaging, you know, every time I enter a new area and fight new types of enemies. But that's pretty much it for gameplay. You know, overall, I stick to more close quarters combat characters, so I don't think I'm gonna be using characters like Xion or Rinwell very much. I think my main characters I'll end up using will be Alphen and Law. You know, I love playing as Jude and Zilia, and I love playing as sword characters in pretty much every other Tales game. So I think those two are going to be my bread and butter for this game. I'm sure, you know, within my entire playthrough, I will at least try out everyone a decent amount. But in terms of like who I'm going to be maining, you know, when I fight big bosses and stuff like that, definitely going to be Alphen and Law, and I'll have to see which one I kind of vibe with more. So I think that's pretty much it from a gameplay perspective. You know, everything else gameplay-wise, you know, I'll love to see. I like to hear, or I have liked hearing, that there is going to be some sort of skill system. I love the skill tree in the first Tales of Xillia. I don't like what they did in the second one. It got too convoluted to figure out what skills I want to put on people. I'd much rather just have a skill tree with points, and I just allocate them one by one. So if it's going to be something like that, I will be very much open to that. I love skill trees like that. So that's definitely a big thing for me. I guess one more thing to talk about the gameplay. I still am coming to grips with the fact that we are not getting anime cut-ins for the Mystic Arts. You know, they already stated that it was, you know, it had to do with, like, loading times and stuff like that, you know, technical stuff that it's faster and more seamless to have it the way it is, where it kind of, like, freeze frames on the character's face mid-animation, and that's supposed to be your cut-in. So I kind of understand that to an extent. At least we're getting a reason instead of them just removing the cut-ins and not saying anything about it, but I still will miss the anime cut-ins. You know, if we get full-on remakes in, like, the Arise engine, so to speak, of, like, old Tales games and they don't have the anime cut-ins, then I'm just gonna... I don't know how I'll feel then. I'll feel kind of wonky about that. But on the gameplay front, I think that's it with that. Story-wise, you really can't say too much about story because we don't really know what's going on too much. We have a general outline of the game. You know, Alphen is from one planet, Xion is from another. They're obviously going to work together to make, you know, just everything a better place. And of course, everyone else that joins the party kind of falls in line with that. But beyond that, you know, we know little details like Rinwell really isn't going to be fond of Xion for a while because of, you know, her distaste of Xion's people and how they've kind of treated everyone. So we know little stuff like that. We obviously don't know anything about this hooded figure that apparently has this anger for Alphen for some reason, or somehow knows who he is. But we have little tidbits of little, like, things that we're going to find out. But in terms of an overall view, like, we don't know what their goal is. Like, what are they trying to achieve exactly? Like, obviously, Alphen and Xion and the rest of them are on some kind of journey, but where are they going? What are they doing to make their world a better place? We don't know. Are they just going to beat up, you know, the leaders of, you know, the bad people? Or what are we going to see? So, story, I can't really say too much, but I did, up to the last CM that they had, the CM is like the 15-second, like, teasers that they put online sometimes, where we do see, it looks like Xion is being carried away, and she's, like, upset. It's almost like she was never allowed to have feelings. She never allowed herself to feel anything before, but then, you know, being on this journey, you know, she started to, you know, feel these things for Alphen. I don't know if they're romantic or not. I don't know if it's just, like, having a bond with someone, but she is talking about how she regrets, and she wishes she had never felt this if things are just going to end the way that they're ending. You know, if she's going to be taken away, you know, back to her world or something, you know, maybe that's what's happening, we have no idea. She wishes she had never gotten these feelings before because it's nothing but pain losing what's important to you type thing. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. So once I saw that, I immediately became 10 times more invested in the story, because up to that point it was just like, okay, we're getting a bunch of trailers and stuff of characters fighting. There wasn't really, you know, too much into the characters themselves that we had seen so far. And that was kind of the first time where I was just like, wow, okay, I want to see where this goes. I'm really interested in this, which, of course, as I've mentioned, when it comes to Tales, I am far more interested in the story than I am the gameplay, which is weird because it's like you get people all the time who are just like, well, why don't you just, watch movies? And it's like, story is as much. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about this, but story is as much gameplay to me as the actual fighting. So that's it for story. So I'm very interested to see what every character's arc is going to be like, what their motivations are. So I am definitely invested on that front, so that's a good thing there. The world itself, I don't know how to feel yet, because we've only really seen, small areas, and I really just want to get a scope of how big the world is actually going to be. Like, I'm hoping there's not only, 3 towns on one planet, and then there's, 5 field areas between them all, and then there's, the same thing for the other planet. I'm hoping these are pretty big. I'm hoping there's, 2 or 3 big cities on each planet, and then, 5 or 6 small towns that we'll go to on each planet. The way they're making this game sound is that it's going to be a big, big Tales title, so I'm really expecting the scope of it. Even though it's not an open world game, I expect it to be one of a type of game where you really are feeling like, okay, this is massive. I'm going on this grand adventure. It's going to take me, days, weeks, obviously in the character's eyes, to get from this part of the world to the other part of the world. So I do hope that the scope of the world is as big as they're making it seem. I don't want it to just be kind of like, all right, you've got this, 5-mile radius that you're kind of exploring between. Zestiria took place on one continent, which did make the game feel very, very small in terms of where you were running back and forth between the same places a lot. And then Berseria, you really didn't, there were 3 continents you would go between, but, it didn't feel as immersive to me just because it's like you were clicking the boat and then you weren't, if you were actually driving the boat yourself and sailing, I think it would have felt much more immersive, but just watching a little pixel move across a map screen for 5 seconds and then all of a sudden you're there didn't feel as immersive to me. So that's another thing too. I hope whatever kind of traveling mechanics we have, whether we get a ship to fly to the other planet or we have boats at some point in the game, I hope it does feel on a more immersive experience than just you're there, teleport. What else is there really to say about, the stuff we've seen so far? I guess the big thing, the characters' designs. At first, when I saw Dohalim and Kisara, they almost didn't look like Tales characters to me. They almost, and, some people will disagree with this. My initial impressions, I was looking at them and I'm like, these almost look more like Final Fantasy characters than Tales characters, which, like I said, the game in the series is evolving, so things do look different. We have much less of kind of that anime aesthetic than, we ever have, but if they still, it still feels anime. If you take someone who doesn't, play anime games too much, but they know what anime is, and they look at this, they're gonna be like, oh, this is an anime game. It still is anime enough to where it looks like that, but, compared to a lot of other Tales games, of course, we've kind of gone away from that just so the, character models and just the world looks, I guess, higher quality, so to speak. Even though the anime aesthetic is more of a style, it's not really that they were trying to make things look old. But, that is something that some people say where they're like, oh, I don't want to play the old Tales games because they kind of look this way. And it's like, everyone has their own taste. Some people will just solely not play a game or even watch a series for that matter if it looks a certain way. I mean, I'm that way. There are certain animes I have refused to watch because I was like, I really just don't like the style. I'm really just not going to be able to get into it. So that is a thing. But I feel like a lot of my, downsides are just stuff that we don't know yet. Talking about the skits. We don't know how skits are going to look. There's discussion online right now, people thinking, what if we just end up with 3D skits? Which I don't know how I'd feel. If it was literally still if we're still getting all the characters on the screen, but they're actually just moving, they're not the anime, 2D models, and they're actually just the 3D models of the characters just put up on the screen like a skit. I don't think I'd hate it, but I'd still prefer to have more 2D anime skits, because obviously there's all these, they said they have the most animated stuff done by Ufotable that they've ever had in a Tales game before. So where is all, besides, the cutscenes, where is all that artwork going? So I'm really hopeful that skits, I'm fine if they look like the way they did in Berseria and Zestiria, where it's full body. I really don't have a problem with that, because it's pretty much what we have in Rays and Christoria. We pretty much have the full body one, so that'd be fine. So I really would prefer that over 3D models themselves. Besides that, I don't really know what else to say, honestly. I mean, this is pretty much all we know about the game so far. More stuff will come. July 5th, we're going to see what the opening animation looks like. Might give us some more insight as to the scope of the world as well, like I was talking about. And then we'll probably, because they did say they have a series of streams planned, so there's probably going to be another stream or two before the game's actual release. I could see a stream at the beginning of August after that, and then maybe a stream like the week before the game launches, where it's just kind of like this like final celebration before the game is actually out. So we'll just have to see. But let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know what your guys' worries are, what your excitement is for the game. I'm very curious to see what everyone thinks. But that's going to be it, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more if you're new to the channel. I'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.